Good afternoon. This is the Torah on Parshas Acharei Mot. It's also known as Parshas Acharei. And the Parsha starts with after the death of Aaron's two sons, and Moshe speaking to Aaron, and then instructions on how to do the Yom Kippur Avoda, which covers about almost half the Parsha. It then goes on to describe a new system. Before this, offerings could be made. It did not have to be made in a Mishkan. There wasn't a Mishkan, could have been made elsewhere. With the making of the Mishkan sanctuary, all offerings, this doesn't mean meat that was being slaughtered for eating purpose, but that was going to be offered, could only be offered in the Mizbeach and the Mishkan. This was to counter a lot of the Avodah Zorah, idol-worshiping practices that the Jews had seen in Egypt and were going to be confronted again when they went into the Eretz Canaan and were doing battle with the 31 nations. And that was strictly prohibited. Beyond that even, there was another, when one did shecht an animal, it had to be done, and that's whether one trapped an animal or shechted it with a chaya, wild animal, or domesticated animal. There were procedures for slaughtering it, and the blood of the chayas and of birds had to be poured, that included chickens, had to be poured onto the ground and covered. Of course, he's explained where elsewhere that is the lifeblood of the animal. That's where its soul inhabits, unlike humans. And it then, again, saying, I am Hashem, your God. It goes into it again. And it says that we cannot do, that the Bnei Israel cannot do any of the practices that they saw in Egypt, and can not do the practices the tribes they're going to do. And these are dealing with all the prohibitions against improper intimate relationships, including all the ancestral prohibitions as well as others. And Hashem warns at the end that through Moshe that the land became contaminated, and the people could be expelled if nothing did that kind of thing. And anybody who commits those will be cut off from his people, and their soul will be cut off. They'll die young, their higher soul will be cut off. And again, ones that one should not do that. Now, what I would like to focus on today actually, I would like to focus on the first two verses. And it says, V'daber el Moshe Acharei Shnei benim Aaron, Baruchatam lifnei Hashem yemotzo. Hashem spoke to Moshe after the death of Aaron's two sons, when they approached before Hashem and they died. And V'yomer Hashem el Moshe, Devalon achicha al yavo b'kol eit kodesh b'beis paraket liya al b'nei kaporet paraket asher al Aaron lo yemos ki ba'anan yira kaporas. And Shem said to Moshe, speak to Aaron, your brother. Then there's a separation in the rest of the pasuk. Says he shall not come at all times into the sanctuary within the desert in front of the cover that is upon the ark, so they should not die. For in a cloud will they appear upon the ark cover. That's in the inner holy part. Now, few questions here. I dealt with this partially in another Devar Torah, but very serious question of, first of all, I'm going to ask the following questions. What did Aaron's two sons do improperly? And even if they did something improper, why did that merit the death penalty? That's two questions. A third question I'm going to be asking here is the wording of that second pasuk of the first verses is strange, where it says, according to many of the commentaries, and Moshe spoke to Aaron, and then it goes on, and Hashem gives a commandment that Moshe has to pass on Aaron. But what did Moshe say to Aaron? It doesn't record it there. Now, one way to read the verse, as some commentaries do, is to simply say it was giving a commandment, but then if he did, why do you have to speak to Aaron? He could have said, Moshe, command Aaron to do so and so. Why does it say speak to Aaron? And then it tells something else that has to be done. Now, there are many commentaries on this. The ones I'm going to be, it's a famous question, ones I'm going to be basing myself on the commentary on Chumash of Jim Shulman from Astropoli, Zohar, the Ora Chaim Kodesh, and Magani Hamuka, famous Rav from Krakov's commentary on Chumash, and among others. And I would like to address these issues. First of all, what was the what did they do incorrect? Aaron's sons. Well, one explanation that's given is they'd actually done something before. Some commentaries say that they shouldn't have gone up to Har Sinai with the Moshe, Aaron, and the 70 elders at the time of Matan Torah, and because they weren't at the level to do it. However, in light of what I'm going to say, there are some difficulties with this. The next thing I'm going to get that's said is they did one of two things. They offered either a strange fire that was not commanded. Now, from there, it seems there's one of two things. Either they did not take the fire off the Mizbeach, where the altar was, that was burning, and or the second one is that they took a strange fire, one that had not been commanded. Either way, why would that be a capital offense? Now, one explanation that's given of those who say that it was in fact a punishment was that it shouldn't have been a death penalty, but because even though Aaron had been forgiven for what he did with the golden calf, there was still a taint from it, from the Avera. They say it was thin as a hair, but it was still a taint, and that led to so the two sons did not get the protection. That's another way of looking at it. But there is a whole different perspective, which I would like to share on it now, and this also addresses the question of what did Moshe say to Aaron? He said the following. He said he had told Aaron that Hashem had told him before that the sanctuary, the Mishkan, was going to be sanctified by those who were closest to him. Now, if we say that it's those that are the closest to him, there's four possibilities. Who could that be? That could be Moshe, that could be Aaron, that could be Nadab and Abihu, the two sons. Now, why did Moshe tell Aaron this now? because of the great pain he suffered losing 2 sons, saying that's not the way to look at it. They, in other words, because they were so close to Hashem sanctified the Mishkan. One of the explanations that's given of what does it mean he sanctified the Mishkan was because it was among the people, Bnei Israel. There was a danger that people would become too familiar with it, take it too for granted, take Hashem's presence too for granted, which could have led to all kinds of problems. And therefore, it was sanctified by showing that even those very close to Hashem, if they do not respect the rules, well, even Hashem would even take their lives. Now that's another perspective as part of it. But there's a way you can look at it in a very positive way. It is explained that Nadav and Abihu were greater than Moshe and were closer to Hashem than Moshe and Aaron. Now, I want to make one caveat on that, one exception, that what I'm talking about is a certain level of holiness. It does not contradict that Moshe was the greatest of all prophets, is one of the 13 principles of faith of the Rambam, that he was the greatest of the prophets. Those who came before him became after. He's the only one who spoke Pashel Parah, face to face with upon him with Hashem. Hashem directly communicated with him. It wasn't through visions. It was something far deeper than that. Now, having said that, so if that's the case, it can be looked at it as a positive thing, because Moshe and Aaron was a question. How could it say that the two of them were greater than either Moshe or Aaron? 2 against 1 doesn't seem to make too much sense. However, there's another thing. It's explained that they were really one soul being shared between 2 bodies, Nadav and Abihu. That's one aspect. Second of all, because they were taken, it shows that they were either closer to Hashem. Hashem wanted their presence back with them in the next world, in Olam Haba. That being the case, their death was not a punishment. In that sense, it had another aspect that allowed them to get on another higher place in Shemayim, because there's a question that's been asked that Eliyahu Hanavi, which I'll have something to say a bit more about a little later, went to heaven alive. Now, that being the case, Moshe didn't. Now, if Moshe was greater prophet and was greater than Eliyahu, which nobody would disagree, why did he have to die? And why did, for that matter, Aaron have to die? Now, they didn't merit death, but because of the sin of Adam and Chava and poison the snake, the only way that could be fully removed was through a person dying, going to the next world. But the explanation that is given is that I believe it was Babanel that was given, was that there's a certain places in Shemayim that one cannot get to if they have any physical, whatever it means in next world, any physical aspects. And therefore, as great as Eliyahu was, he wasn't at the same level as Moshe. He wasn't at the same level of Moshe. Moshe went to the highest place it was possible for any human neshama soul to go, and that was immediately under Hashem's Kisei Kavod, his throne, and it was there. And the same with Nadav and Abihu. They were in this exalted place, and similarly to Moshe and Aaron. Now, another question is, so what happened to Nadav and Abihu? They were buried, their bodies were buried. What happened to the neshamas, their souls? And as is explained later, they stayed in the camp of the Bnei Israel at that time. And in Parshas Pinchas and Parshas Balak and fell away, Parshas Pinchas, they were involved. How were they involved? They were involved because when the immoral acts were being committed by the Jewish men with the idol-worshipping women of Midian, they Hashem sent a plague, and Moshe told Pinchas the only way that plague could be stopped was by killing Zimri, who was one of the princes of the tribe of Shimon, and Cosby, who was the Midianite princess who he was committing an immoral act with. And Pinchas was going to confront them, but the tribe of Shimon was obviously not happy that their leader was about to be killed, and they were trying to stop him. As pointed out in the Zohar, Pinchas was so afraid that what happened is his neshama was about to leave his body. Nadav and Abihu connected with him, had put his soul back into his body, was there with him, and he then killed Zimri and Cosby and stopped the plague from spreading any further. Now, because of their act, not only was Jewish nation saved, and they became, which I'll discuss more when we get to Parshas Pinchas, they became very connected to the soul of Pinchas. In any event, what happened, Pinchas, who eventually is also connected to Eliyahu, which again I will discuss in more detail when we get to that Parsha, those end of Parshas Balak and the beginning of Parshas Pinchas. It says that Pinchas was rewarded with the reward of Shalom. This is, he first of all was made a Cohen, even though he went to priest, even though he went to qualified, because he was the next generation. However, Hashem gave him that gift. He also gave him the gift of Shalom. Now, Shalom means peace. However, as my teacher, Rav Oziel Molesky, pointed out, the word Shalom in the Chumash, the Vav is split. Spell is Shalom, Shin Lamed Vav Mem Sofid. The Vav is split into two, and the top part of it becomes a Yud. You get the word Shalem, which means complete. Now, what was complete? Pinchas was made complete. How was he made complete? Because everything in the universe, including people, are made up of four spiritual elements: spiritual earth, spiritual air, spiritual fire, and spiritual water. And what happened here, and they're out of balance, of course, as I said, because of the sin. I said earlier, the sin of Adam and Chava, eating that fruit, eats a dust of Tov and Ra. Everybody, to get rid of the poison from the snake, the Yetzer Hara, eventually has to go to the next world. But what Hashem did, he made Pinchas Shalem, and he balances earth, air, fire, and water, so that Pinchas never had to die, and he therefore lived. He eventually gets connected, which I'll explain when we get to that parsha, with Eliyahu Hanavi. In any event, this was all due to the action of Nadav and Abihu, studying him and helping him carry through the mission he needed to carry through. And when we look at this, we see that the whole divine plan is multi-generational and millennium wide, and we should realize that everything that is occurring is Hashem's part of Hashem's design and is part of Hashem's purpose. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.